Okay, all you happy lost souls. I'm sorry, the last few videos I put up, the quality was really bad, so I kind of just took them down, having some network issues and whatnot. Could have been a program, and it also had a bad camera. So I hope this turns out better. I'm really excited because recently, near the one Quarry site of the Penny Pack, I discovered a huge site, and it's split by a baseball field. Um, this is just all surface finds. I was there for about an hour total. Both times I went, the second time was a washout. I'll try to splice in a couple pictures of the bank and everything. But I'm gonna call this site a quarry site, and I'm gonna call it the source. And I also call it the beach of hammers because these crazy hammers that would fool you as modern and being metal at first because the notching is so perfect. And we got this perfect beaked end right here. This is more of a pick. And after I cleaned it, because I clean everything, if you find anything on creek banks, especially on the surface, there could be all kinds of raccoon shit. You just don't want any kind of parasites. They just clean everything. You can see what you got better. You start seeing like rope marks and things. You see the same type of notching in something like this. Here, look at this. This is a crazy hammer, and we're going to talk a little bit about the material, but what you can see clearly is the banding from the strap that was used, that wrapped, and it continued right on down. And then there's the notch. And what's so interesting is this material is not really stone, but you can see this triangular man-made notch, and then this slight notch right there. And when the stuff is wet after you're cleaning it, it's much easier to see that. But I want to show you this turned around real quick, and this is massive. This thing weighs about 13 and a half, 14 pounds in that range. And you can see the lines running up and then wrapping through this material. And the leaching, I guess the proper term would be patina that was left behind, is really the ore that is running through this mass of ore. And I can only say that you could see how much banding was used to hold this down. And this could have been something used to mash, but again, it has a clear point and a clear animal profile from the side again. We're seeing this animal worship going on in the tools. And you find these crazy ores at the same site, at the same place. So when I say the lost silver mines have been found, and you find silver ore that's been quarried out and stacked up by some ancient person, or peoples, I should say, that knew about metal, but not only metal. We're not talking about working cold copper from the ground. We're talking about mashing up different metal, heating it to make other metals. I left this out because this piece I had tested. This is pretty much pure silver, a big old piece of it. That's why a lot of it got red. So we'll put that near the other piece there. And this thing is really heavy, and you can see all the different metals running through it. Some metals are crystallized. There's all kinds of metals in it, but I don't have the equipment to test that. I gotta take it to an assayer. Luckily, I live very close to Jersey, and there's quite a few of them over there, apparently. Another giant piece of metal, and I don't know what kind of metal this is. I've showed pictures saying it's silver. I believed it was, but I don't know what it is. It's not lead. It's not ferrous. It's very heavy. What's weird is it has chromium right here in this one nodule of the metal. This black stuff. And that usually comes up a lot when you see like platinum and palladium and those type of metals, which is what this stuff is. Remember, and then there's some very modern activity. This is probably a road saw that cut through this big old piece of, I call that headstone granite, a coffin stone. But you see these Canfieldites, and you see all the golds running through it, and the metals, and then like you realize it's also an artifact because it's been worked and shaped, and you kind of gotta look back in candlelight to really see the effect. But you gotta duck. It's like a mallard's head, pretty much. You got the eye and the beak, but then on this side there's another animal. It's almost like it's a stamp. It could be some kind of pottery stamp. I'll have to test that. I didn't realize this. I took this because it was definitely an ore specimen, and this is from this source site, or the other side though. But I've been working on trying to figure all this out and trying to figure out what people were making tools out of this very crazy, I would say naturally occurring, for lack of a better term, it's several metals. So you have alloys, like, and I can't even call these stone hammers. The uniqueness though is the same people are side profile. You have like a Thunderbird looking thing here, and you can see it a lot better when it's wet. There's actually an eye still, and this is the craziest one because for days I thought I had pareidolia. I took this piece not because it was a hammer or a tool. I took it because it's some kind of metal ore, and I saw all this some sort of mercury sulfates or something running through it. Thereafter, Native Americans were infatuated with red, and they were also, a lot of cultures did. Red was very important. The dead were covered in ochre, this red substance, and this is a cinnabar, and they were quarrying cinnabar, a lot of things that look like cinnabar that could create red pigment. There's coppers back there. Lots of tins and nickel, and we're going to get into why that's important, but I want to show you something because it's not pareidolia, because I took a lot of time looking at this, and I noticed that that has the same notch as all the other hammers that are made out of the same material. But if you look closely, you see right there, that's a perfect eye. And up there, that's the ridge line for the haunch and the hair. And right there, that's the snout. This is a boar. From the side, another side animal profile. I have to say that I probably put this back to 6,000 BCE all the way up to right at 0 to 1,000. You have this beautiful serpentine, but there's this like silvers, all kinds of like little silvers and different metals running through this that give it this crazy striping. And it's this tomahawk head. All this stuff was just on the surface at this bank, and there were bucket loads of it, piles. Another tool, like a planing tool, but by the same maker. Another celt made out of the same odd speckled, ore-laced material. It's almost like an advanced ceramic. And I question, how did they even shape this? The stuff's really hard. It's like made out of different bits of really hard metal. There's probably titaniums, there's chromiums, there's all kinds of metals back there. because the geology is crazy. We're on a fault line, and this fault line, the creek runs through, and the spot of the stream where all this stuff is found is like a trinity, where the stream splits 3 different directions. Is a massive quarry site over a long period of time. There's evidence of quarrying going up to like early 1900s, late 1800s back there. Seemed like an old sluice. Now, like I said, these lands are like, we're not going to go mining, or I'm not into it for that. So I'm only into it for the story and only take a few things. And importantly, I was very careful at identifying any pottery that was found in proximity. And luckily, unlike a lot of sites in the Northeast, there was a ton of pottery, and it was Susquehannock, which is starting to look more and more connected. I'm not even going to say more and more. It's connected to Kahota. The Susquehannock and Kahota, the mound builders of Ohio, the mound builders of even up into the Michigan areas and Tennessee and Mississippi and that whole Mississippi Valley culture, the Adena culture, their pottery is there. And I mean, like, we find beautiful examples of the old rim of this is their style pottery. And you see very later examples of their style pottery, which is more advanced because it's glazed. And you find it, this Mayan blue right in proximity with it. So this pottery, the materials like polygorskite clays and the mercuries, unique to this area, the canfoldites, this crazy fault line that runs through Huntington Valley, that this creek known as the Pennypack or Pennapeca, or the creek that runs uphill with dead dark deep waters. Many different peoples for thousands of years have used this, and there's activity of organized quarrying and culture and religion and belief. And I found and learned something very important about the belief. I noticed this piece is a boar, right? And what are boars good at? They love digging up roots in the ground. And this piece would have been, it's actually grooved right here, and it would have been held and tied down on the back. And this is the striking end. This is the striking end right there. And you see that's like dark red because it's got pigment on it still. The one side is painted red. The other is probably maybe black at one time, I'm not sure. But the face of the boar and the eye, this beautiful eye right there with the pupil and the eye itself, that is carved in there, but it's also pigment of some kind. And this might not even be a boar. Maybe it's like an auroch or a cow, but I see nostrils here. It looks very boar-like to me, and with all the haunches. And I'm going to take some pictures and try to enhance them to see more of what's going on there. But you see this animal worship, and you see these tons of weapons of both conflict, weapons that are beautiful, things that are held sacred. Mica was held sacred by a lot of different tribes, the Iroquois, the Lenape. They believed that the sparkling nature was their ancestors, the souls coming out of the rocks speaking to them. You then see like quarries of these little intricate, crazy type tools that I would call more Solutrean in design, that had like these ridges and these cutting hooks and these crazy little saws, these crazy little fishing tools that had a point but it broke off, these crazy little like sewing type tools, this extremely like triangular and diamond preforms. I have some in the case over there that are bifacially flaked on both sides, very intricate. And even start seeing stemmed profiles, and then we see like this like insanely flaked one, a piece of like this is shale pretty much, and very hard to work with because it's metamorphic, but it's also like layered. There's like stress, there's fractures all through it, and you can see they kind of maybe stopped. But I love when you find them half done because you can kind of see how they were doing the process. You see these hooks, and then you see like a lot of ceremonial type pieces left, made of metal, different like arrowheads and polished down by the stream. Unfortunately, what you see is very tiny boutique little stem. But you see this like fascination with tin, and there's a lot of tin naturally and nickel in the area, and I believe you started seeing some outside culture coming in that was making metal very, very important to it. It knew about metal, and it knew its value, whether it was trading, during that time period. There's a lot of bird arrows up there. They're heavier, they're weighted to knock birds out. Very salutary design right there. You get all kinds of overlapping stuff, like all mixed up into one creek. It's crazy. But these pools that are venerated by so many cultures, even in, Britain, ancient Iron Age and Bronze Age, and even the Mesolithic period, where they would leave these beautiful polished stone axes at crossing points. But we noticed a crazy pattern, and we'll call them ghost trees. At all these crazy quarry sites and crossing sites, there's this lineage of ancient ghost trees, I call them. Some of them are still bent and shaped unnaturally, like a trail tree. But they're bright white because they're usually birch or poplar or sycamore. They're bright white in the fall. They stand out. They were used to mark property lines in colonial times, and still today they're popular to mark like property lines because they stand out. So you have to be careful along the creek down there. They could have been old houses and things like that there, but more and more deeper in the woods where there wouldn't have been any of that, we find them. And these are sites that were worshipped and venerated, but venerated for one reason: the resource of stone and metal and great things that were coming out of the ground. These are sites where that crack in the earth that creek is flowing along has created a shallow point where the magma from under the earth can push up through, and the mantle gets exposed, continually pushing stuff from that layer up and out into these hot springs, as they're known, as Willow Grove, known for all through early times, and even down through the Wissahickon. There's a lot of these, and that's what this is back there. That's why it's always steaming back there in the winter. But it's pushing all of this stuff out of the ground, and they knew that. So it's not so much a silver mine, it's a fountain, because there's a crack in the earth pushing all these weird things up. And they utilize these materials. But this culture that seems to have really been leaving things at the creek or bringing things back, worshipping that site, it seems to have carried on. So maybe it's like something kind of like what we do if we're going past a wishing fountain, and or a fountain where people throw like pennies and dimes and whatever in. We take some out and throw our stuff in. And if that was still being done year, and then the currency changed and the tokens changed, you'd have a bunch of collection of different stuff at a site of worship. But this site profile of animal worship, we see it again, but in this beautiful, more Solutrean style scraper. And what we notice back along the Pennypack is a ton of turtle effigy type stones and snapper turtle side profiles, because there is an ancient breed of alligator snapper that is protected in the Pennypack. I accidentally hooked one fishing, and it was probably near 200 years old. The thing was massive, It was probably 60, 70 pounds, huge. It was bigger than a trash can lid. I would think, they can take an arm off an alligator snapper. They're very different than a regular snapping turtle. Um, and you gotta stay, keep them safe too, because you can't really hurt them. It's not good mojo to do any of that. But you see these beautiful pieces left at the site of worship, but of different time periods. You see like more of a workout here. But this wouldn't be ordinary. This is a beautiful piece left with this, what I could assume only got broken at some point, but this beautiful piece of what I believe is like tumbled or polished down petrified wood, because the banding is just crazy, running through it. But they were kind of left together. These areas are strange because, like I said before, more so than the stuff getting washed away, it gets piled up over time. But then after rain and things like that, different things get washed into it, different layers get flipped on top, more like a washing machine. So we see these similarities. The makers of this was found in the same split of the stream. And this seam, this fault that's pouring all this stone out, runs where this trinity is. And it's marked by these bright white ghost trees. But this was found at the other site that I had a video up that I call the Slutrian Quarry. And it's literally looks like a seal profile. This is beautiful. I don't know what material this really is. I believe it's some kind of serpentine. It's some kind of stone or agate, but with a lot of mineral running through it. Extremely thin. And this is actually cleaned, and all these little metals came out. This is a beautiful piece, and it kind of looks like seals, which would be pretty crazy. And I know my camera work sucks. Everyone's going to bitch about that, but just showing all the different minerals that are coming out of this hole that is magical hole in the earth, pouring out fountains and minerals, and they were obviously being worshipped. There's all kinds of different artifacts. But getting back to these animals, perhaps maybe this digging tool was profiled after a boar because they believed it was instilling the power of the boar that could dig up the field so well. And perhaps the thunderbird or a hammer could strike down. And then this crazy hammer up here is some kind of animal on the reverse side, the flat side. But this is some kind of crazy metal, and these are very heavy. I would say this is about a 9 to 10 pound hammer. And the faces come out in this stuff. It could be a rabbit, it could be a bird of some sort. Just not real sure. But this is obviously a crazy hammer. And some of these tools are more for a war. They're more like Celts. Some are just more hammers. Different makers, different time periods. This chert style tool, these are seen in Neanderthal sites all over. And there's a ton of those down there from an older time period. So obviously the site has been worshipped forever. And I'll tell you what, this creek, the uniqueness of it, remember, during the Cambrian period when there's warm ocean in the whole area and the hills were coral reef beds, that creek was still flowing backwards and uphill just on the bottom of the ocean floor in a crevice between two tectonic plates. That'll always be there. And this fault line is bigger than the San Andreas fault, but it's not the same type of fault. So you don't get like the slip fault activity you get out there from the plate constantly rubbing up against each other. But if you ever get an earthquake on the East Coast, we have them down south sometimes in the Virginia area and the Maryland area, you'll feel my whole house will shake up here. We feel the shock waves because the fault is right there. And that's why that creek, which is born from the ground, born from the earth, giving all these great things, been venerated and worshipped by so many people. This is right here in Northeast Pennsylvania. This crazy, crazy, massive collection that you're only seeing a surface layer of, because this is like last week's stuff that I've, pulled out. So just got to get the word out there. This is earth moving, history moving stuff. Who was here? There's fossilized bones and tusk and all kinds of crazy pressure flaking tools at these quarry sites. And I'm still trying to organize it all so it all makes sense visually. And I know my camera work sucks, but it's just a quick walkthrough. This plate of tools here has come from the same quarry site. The maker of these crazy hammers and the side profiles, these animals, found along with that Mississippian style, Mayan style pottery. The same people that made these tools that are pigmented in red, the same people that were gone after the ochre. The same lineage of people. I want to say something that might be so outside the box, but this Beaker people that we don't really know about, that kind of showed up along with metal in the Bronze Age. All over England, someone brought that knowledge to them. A boat landed there and brought that knowledge to Ireland. A boat landed there and brought that. It spread. You don't know from where, how. But what if that culture spread here? But what if it's the Atlantians? What if that island was in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, which is named after the Atlanteans, and that, that whole, Atlantic plain in the middle of the Atlantic that sunk and dipped and sagged as the sea level rose, so maybe maybe people escaped and disseminated this information, and maybe the one thing, this one, because the Atlanteans were known to be advanced. Maybe they spread metal. Maybe they were the Beaker people. I don't know. Maybe they got to America. Maybe the pottery of the Mississippians and the pottery of even the Mayans and what we know of the Olmecs, their stuff looks mighty like Beaker people stuff. And don't want to get into any kind of racial argument about any of this. I'm just trying to dig up what's in the ground and try to make sense of it. And, we have some pottery, but we can't say if it's exactly associated with this, even though it's found near it, because it's just a deposit. So there's no dating, really, other than saying this is found near this, on this day, in this spot, and finding a bunch of things brought back. And my point is, they seem to have brought back the material from where they've took it, almost giving it back, venerating it, giving it to the site. This very druidic, but very it's very Meso American. Maybe you're just seeing parallel evolution, but maybe you're seeing a lot more ideas disseminated at a time period where we didn't know that was happening. Maybe there was a lot more travel going on all across the oceans. Maybe they weren't boundaries. Maybe they were highways. Just crazy materials. And like this bone, it's still got like ochre staining. It's fossilized. So, I found that in a deposit. I'm not digging up like sites or anything. I don't think it's human. If it is, it's like 10,000 years old, because it takes bone a long time to become stone. And you see these different types of, almost Celtic, almost looking style tool. You see super old tools that still have patina on them, like this wedge style Celt left at another creek crossing. I can't leave everything there because this story was never told. If someone already told the story, And they said, do not disturb. I wouldn't disturb. And I'm not doing this for profit gain, just for knowledge and wisdom shared and learned. And we may have the oldest known understanding of magnetism, because what I found out is a lot of the materials I have up here, a lot of these ores, a lot of these weird materials, and let's call them alloys, naturally occurring alloys from the earth mushing a bunch of stuff together in a weird, unique place. I don't know. And you get this like crazy tray of just chert tools that are way older that look like what they find in Africa. So I can't make sense of it all, guys. But I love you all. Please subscribe, share. What do you find in your backyards in southeast Pennsylvania? These creeks all eventually go to the Delaware in one way or go to the, most of them go to the Delaware in one way or another. The Wissahickon kind of is like weird. It kind of comes out of the Schuylkill, goes back into the Schuylkill, but down towards the river. Crazy geology down there. I go to that park a lot too. That's for a different day. The artifacts found down there, they're kind of mixed in over there, but I can tell you where they're all found. I can probably even tell you the day. Even this giant piece of alabaster I found down at that bank, that I call the source. The silver mines were a real thing, and there's another entrance in a different cut, but they're all deriving out of that fault line, out of that creek, and it's not hard to spot it geologically. There's these weird clays, and you'll start getting into these weird mercuries, and then you'll start seeing all kinds of metals, like all kinds of like golds and silvers and copper sulfates, and this is some weird mineral here. I don't know what. Could be ochre. I mean, cinnabar. Some kind of mercury. Just cool stuff, guys. Very cool. Love you all. Stay safe. Please subscribe. Be a happy, lost soul. Peace.